The book costs $4. A water-worked paperback from an estate sale in Connecticut, printed in 1961, written by a man you've never heard of whose family still holds land in 4 states. You find it at the back of a folding table, wedged between a cracked picture frame and a dusty fondue set. The title is forgettable. The first page isn't. Capital isn't built by chasing. It's protected. Everything else is distraction. You're 27. You've got $18,000 saved in the uneasy sense that you're doing everything right and still not moving forward. You earn $74,000. You have a Roth IRA. You track every dollar in an app that feeds you neat little charts you stare at like they're supposed to explain something. You're financially literate the way people in 2026 are, through reels, threads, and 7-part breakdowns from men with perfect lighting. And still, your balance behaves like weather. Up in the good months, down when the car needs repairs, when you book a flight home for the holidays, when a forgotten subscription quietly renews. You read the book in one sitting, parked outside a Goodwill in a suburb you moved to because the rent hurt slightly less. The ideas aren't complex. They aren't new. In fact, they run directly against everything you've been absorbing since your first paycheck. Old money rule 1. Never spend the core. You've been told to invest. No one explained what that actually looks like to people who've been doing it for generations. It's not about riding a bull market. It's not about timing anything. It's about choosing a portion of your money that is permanently off limits. Not for emergencies. Not for opportunities. Not when markets fall and your gut drops with them. You treat that portion the way old families treat land. You don't sell the land. You live off what it produces. You sit with that for a week. You run the numbers on your $18,000. You decide $10,000 is untouchable. You move it into a brokerage account. Then you do something unfamiliar. You stop checking it. The first month feels wrong. The second month less so. By the third, something clicks. Growth needs distance. Watching too closely is what breaks it. The shift is subtle but permanent. You stop tracking what you have. You start tracking what you've locked away for good. Then your spending starts to look different. Not smaller. Just clearer. For the first time, you feel a quiet embarrassment. Not about how much you spend, but about what you spend it on. The book doesn't argue for cheap living. It argues for intentional spending on things that hold value, that last, that don't need replacing. A $40 shirt that turns into a rag in 2 years versus a $160 shirt you're still wearing at 45 isn't a $120 difference. It's the gap between money gone and money preserved. You don't stop buying. You stop reacting. No more impulse purchases. No more chasing trends. No more upgrading something that still works just because there's a newer version. You wait. Not because you're naturally patient, but because patience gets trained into you when you start to see the cost of confusing desire with need. That confusion is where wealth quietly disappears. Your savings rate rises without your income changing. It surprises you at first. Then it feels obvious. Then it feels uncomfortable that it wasn't obvious before. Old money rule 2. Your income is not who you are. In 2026, earnings are a performance. The car, the apartment, the vacations, the restaurants, everything curated, shared, measured against other people doing the same. You've been part of it without realizing. Now you see it everywhere. The coworker with a $91,000 salary and a BMW, talking about the payment like it's a badge of honor. The strain reframed as taste. The friend who moves into a neighborhood she can't afford and calls it investing in herself. An entire vocabulary designed to make liabilities sound like virtues. Treat yourself. Live your best life. You only live once. You keep driving the same car. It's 7 years old. It works. You stop feeling the need to explain it. Then something shifts socially. In certain rooms, People start taking you more seriously. Not because you look wealthy, but because you've stopped signaling need. There's a steadiness to someone who isn't performing. People read it as confidence. They're not completely wrong. What it really is, the absence of that low-grade anxiety that comes from spending ahead of where you actually stand. You have nothing to defend. Nothing to maintain. The weight drops. The shift. You stop using money to signal status. You start using it to build permanence. You're 30. Your core capital is $41,000. Your income is $88,000. You begin doing a bit of consulting on weekends, not loudly, not with a brand or funnel, just 2 clients sent your way by someone you once helped for free. The old rule here is simple. Your work introduces you before you do. You don't market yourself. You don't broadcast what you're building. You do the work, let it speak, and give it time. A third client reaches out. Then a fourth. You don't mention it at your day job, not out of fear, but because you've learned something precise. The moment you talk too much about what you're building, you trade real progress for the short-term satisfaction of being seen making it. Families who kept wealth for generations didn't announce every move. They just made them. Your consulting income reaches $3,200 a month. You send it straight into your core capital. Your lifestyle stays the same. Now it's $62,000. You're 31. The weight of that number feels different. Not just because it's larger, but because you've never treated it as spendable. Not even close. The discipline isn't effort anymore. It's structure. Old Rule 3. Guard your reputation more tightly than your money. This one takes time to understand. In 2026, name has been replaced with brand, and brand has become performance, measured in attention. But attention isn't the same thing. A real name is what people believe about you when you're not in the room. It answers one question. Can this person be trusted with something that matters? It's built slowly, through small, correct decisions made without noise. It can be undone all at once. You turn down a deal that would have paid $14,000 in 6 weeks. The person behind it cuts corners in ways that would tie your name to theirs. You say no. The discomfort lasts a few days. The clarity stays. Over time, in small circles, you become known for something simple: you do what you say you'll do. Not flashy. Not optimized for attention. Just reliable in a way that's increasingly rare. You show up. You finish. You don't oversell before you've delivered. That alone sets you apart. An introduction happens. Someone managing assets for a private group mentions you. There's a problem. You solve it. The fee is $22,000. You've never invoiced that amount before. You don't lower it out of discomfort. You hold steady. They pay. The shift. Your reputation starts producing results on its own. Your name begins to compound. You're 34. Your core capital has never been touched. It's now $124,000. Your consulting brings in $9,400 a month. Your day job, $96,000 a year, you leave quietly on a Tuesday morning. No announcement. No post. No performance. You just transition. You buy a small property. Not in the city. Not impressive. A 2-unit building in a secondary market, nothing an algorithm would recommend, nothing a content creator would feature. It's not visually striking. The numbers aren't dramatic. But it works. The numbers are simple. The yield makes sense. The tenants pay on time. You keep it. Old Rule 4. Time is the one asset you can't buy back. It sounds obvious until you start to feel it in your 30s. The families that kept wealth didn't build it in a single lifetime. They built it across generations. Which means, at some point, someone had to accept they were planting trees they would never sit under. You start thinking in 20-year stretches. You pass on 3 opportunities that would have brought in fast cash but demanded all your attention. Instead, you choose things that are slow, quiet, unimpressive. The kind of decisions that don't translate into good stories at dinner. You're not trying to win conversations. You're trying to still be standing in 2046. That shift changes what you notice. You start seeing patterns beneath the noise. Not predictions, just cycles. The kind you only recognize if you stop reacting to every short-term movement. You position yourself for a downturn before it arrives. Not because you called it, but because your horizon is long enough that you were already holding something that would hold up. It returns $38,000 over 14 months. You reinvest it. No celebration. The old rules don't treat returns as events. Returns are expected. You celebrate what's uncertain, not what was designed to happen. The shift. You stop measuring progress in years. You start measuring it in decades. You're 38. Your core capital is $340,000. 2 properties, fully owned. Your business brings in $180,000 a year without needing all of your time. You work 4 days a week. On the 5th, you focus on things that may not pay for years: relationships, introductions, slow building ideas with no launch date. People your age carry a constant tension. Sometimes they say it out loud. Sometimes they don't. The mortgage. The raise that didn't happen. The market dip that erased months of effort in a few days. You're not outside the system, but you're no longer reacting to it. The standard advice is to keep 3 months of expenses saved. Yours is measured in years. You don't talk about it. No one needs to know your baseline. They only need to see that you're steady. Old Rule 5. Never reveal the full count. The families you've studied. Not celebrities, not headline billionaires, but the quiet ones who've held land and managed trusts for generations, they share one trait. You can't tell what they have by looking at them. No visible signals. No obvious markers. No need to announce. Not out of humility, but because visibility invites pressure. Attention. Requests. Deals that only exist because someone assumes you have something to spare. Remaining unseen is a form of control. The principle is blunt. Display is often driven by insecurity. You buy a watch. It costs $400. No one recognizes the brand. You wear it for 7 years. You're 41. Your net worth is $1.1 million. 3 people know the number. One of them is your accountant. It doesn't feel like what you thought it would. Not like the videos. Not like the highlight reels. It feels like the result of hundreds of small, correct decisions made consistently over time. And instead of feeling like a finish line, it feels like a landscape you've stepped into. Quieter than expected. Slower. More durable. The noise is still out there. Still pushing urgency. Still comparing timelines. Still selling faster paths. Some people did find shortcuts. Many are just selling the idea that they did. You stop paying attention, not out of judgment, but because it no longer applies to you. The performance was never meant for someone with a plan. Somewhere tonight, someone your age stands in a thrift store parking lot, holding a cheap old book, reading a sentence that doesn't quite land yet. Capital isn't something you chase. It's something you protect. She might put the book back. And before she reaches the next page, something louder will pull her attention away. But if she keeps reading, if she follows the first rule, then the second, and stays with the discomfort of the third long enough for it to settle into habit instead of performance, she won't become someone new. She'll become someone with options. Real ones. The kind you can't rush. The kind that don't show up overnight. The kind that require what earlier generations understood better than most: time, patience, and the discipline to let things grow without needing to prove it in public. The book costs $4. The principles cost nothing. What they ask for is something else entirely: the version of you that wanted everything immediately.